and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Oh, let's see. Trustee Bennett?
Here.
Trustee Hatton?
Yes.
Trustee McGurran?
Here. Administrators updates. Lori Kyle.
Good evening. The only thing that I have this evening is for the board to confirm for ODOT the total mileage for 2025 for township roads. There's been no change. It maintains at 47.954 miles. So if the trustees can each sign that. And that's all I have this evening.
Well, thank you. Fiscal officer updates. Julie Joy Smith.
I have been successful in closing the 25 calendar year. I'm pretty excited about it. I got the financial report uploaded to the Auditor of State site. And as a result, I was able to get the January bank reconciliation done. So I'm going to pass that around. There is one item, meaning that we're out of balance by $8.34. And what it was is on the health reimbursement account for one of the employees, they gave us $8.34 back on it, put it back in our checking. And I did the adjustment on the purchase order side. But then I went ahead and closed this bank rec with this adjustment. And basically I had to create a receipt showing that we received the money. So in February, this will disappear. So this is a non-material adjustment. So that's just for you to review and to sign. And then at our March 1st meeting, I'll have the February bank rec like normal. So, and then the second item that I have is that we did approve. I have the signatures necessary on the purchase order to purchase the equipment truck from ODOT for the road department. Now, this does technically meet the definition of a capital improvement, heavy rolling vehicles that are not used on a daily basis. So it meets all the requirements. So theoretically, it could be paid for out of the general fund. Under normal circumstances, we would pay for it out of the road funds. Superintendent Bulak did indicate in his conversation with Administrator Kyle that one of our paving estimates came in under budget, so there is a little more wiggle room in his budget for this $10,000 purchase. I just need to know how to pay it. So if you three want to discuss it and give me guidance, I can always do a utility and adjustment down the road if we change our minds. But in order to get this done, because I do have to give a copy of the purchase order to Superintendent Bulak to provide it to, they have to have proof that we have the money encumbered. So
How much under budget was his?
I don't have the specifics on that, but Paul felt confident that they were under budget for those projects for this summer. Provided we don't get into a situation like we did 2 years ago where they forgot to quote something, and I don't think that will rear its ugly head again. But and last year, the paving came in. I believe I ended up closing out probably $5,000 to $8,000 worth of the purchase order and closing it out that went unspent. So I believe that we can do it either way. We can split it. We can do a 50-50 split with road and general fund. We can do 75-25. We can do whatever it is your little heart's desire. But I need some guidance on where to take the money from.
If we approve a split now, does that speed the process up if he says yes?
Doesn't matter. I mean, he was willing to, do it out of his budget. If you do a split of 50-50, it's just saving the road department, $5,000. We do have the means in general fund, again, not talking about what happens if in November. That changes everything we do across the board.
So if we kept it under the road department now, which it seems that's the most appropriate, and down the road they are short on something, you could use the general fund at that time.
Yeah, what I can do is I can always do a utility and recreate the purchase order after the fact. I can switch funds on it, and then I can switch funds on the payment. It's like a two-step change, but it's doable as long as I do it in the same calendar year. So I'm happy to pay for this however you all are comfortable paying for it.
What you say?
If you were to take it out of the general fund, there's adequate monies there. That,
Absolutely.
here's my thought. It's February.
Mhm.
We got 10 months to go. Everything's unforeseen. It's just fortunate to have these bids come in lower,
Mhm.
which we don't know may be the case of some emergent repair coming down the road. If we can afford it out of the general fund, and if everything goes well for Paul, at the end of the year, perhaps we could return that 10,000 to some repairs on the street, return it back, if you will, to the
Sure.
constituents. I'm okay with the general fund.
It matters not to me. I just need to know which bucket I'm pulling the money from.
Since his budget's already in, I'd like to know how much under budget he is, really, on that road, about.
I don't have any of that even remotely, not even like I can go grab it. It's in a series of emails from the engineer's office.
Okay. But the PO is already approved, so he can proceed with,
The
Getting it.
request has been approved. I have not created the purchase order yet. And that's where I need to know, because in order to create the purchase order, I have to tell it what fund. And like I said, down the road, even after the bill is paid, I can still do a utility and change the under, it's like, I can go in behind the scenes. I know that sounds awful, but I can do a purchase order. I can go in and change it and say, I want to reallocate it from general fund to the road department. And then on the payment side, I go in and I adjust the payment from general fund to the road. I mean, it's just a paper trail.
What's the easiest for you?
It really is. Setting it up the way we're going to pay it would be the most ideal, but none of this is a hardship for me. 5 minutes at the office, so.
well, I'd say if his fund can afford it, just pay it out of that. And if his fund needs money later on for some reason, then we can just transfer money in. That's
Or you can, I
probably
mean,
the
if he
easiest
comes
path.
up short at the end of the day, you can
Right.
always advance money from the
Right.
general fund to the road, and we don't have to touch the
Yeah.
payment or the purchase order at all. You
Okay.
can, and now you could advance the money, which is when you advance money, the expectation is he's going to give it back.
Mhm.
When you transfer money, it's a gift. So we could transfer money at any point during the calendar year if he hits like if all of his equipment goes wonky this year.
Right.
So road, am I hearing road? Are we all good with that?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That it?
That's it for
All
me.
right. Thank you, Julie. Discussion items. Ohio Township Association Risk Management Authority Property and Liability Insurance Renewal Review with Bob Brasselton, Agent, and Thomas Welch, Director. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you for inviting us, Lori.
For coming.
It made a lot of sense this time. We always meet together to review the renewal, but she mentioned this workshop, perfect timing. And Thomas Welch, who's a manager out of the Columbus, Ohio area, it came down to share, basically bring you all up to speed with all the latest and greatest developments with OTARMA. And with that,
Sounds good. Thank you, Bob. I have copies for everybody. I'm not sure if you've seen the renewal yet, or I guess.
I did email it.
Did you? Oh, you passed it around. Okay, so that's.
Thank you.
There's a lot of pages here. I promise you, I will not go through every page. 5.
I don't need any more pages.
Okay, I have my thoughts. Just to kind of bring you up to speed and give you some background on Ross Township and its membership in OTARMA dates back to 1992, so it's a lot of years. I think it's been a really good situation. I think the main reason OTARMA started was to give townships a solution that really wasn't available at that time, and that was in the late 80s. And I think it's really kept Ohio townships independent from the fluctuations in the market over the years. We have seen just, over recent years, a really, really significant hard market where rates have increased quite a bit. A lot of years, Otarma didn't have to even touch the rates for years, but over recent years, I know last year you saw a bit of a more significant increase. This year, it's stabilized a bit. So the Otarma board, which is run by your peers, so there's three representatives from the OTA on the board, and then there's 4 at-large board members as well. So they are making decisions on your behalf, and they've negotiated reinsurance terms that are a little more favorable this year. So when you look at your renewal, you'll see that it is up slightly. I think just over 6% last year, but well justified in some increases in values. So I'll just kind of start by, you'll see on the right side of your packet there, the overview of the summary of coverages. So you've chosen over the years to have if you look at page 2, you have a $5 million per occurrence limit, and that's across all of your lines of liability. So you see 4 lines of liability there. You see at the top of the page who's covered. Really, it's anybody who represents the township under your direction, whether it's volunteers, employees, public officials, your emergency service organization, of course. And then anybody within that is afforded that $5 million per occurrence, as long as they're not doing anything, of criminal nature and those types of things. But so you see the deductibles there. So that hasn't changed. The one really important item is there is no aggregate limit on any of your lines of coverage. So you could have a $5 million per occurrence, $5 million occurrence today and another $5 million occurrence in a month from now, and so on. So there's no max per year, which is what that means. So general liability, auto liability, so we cover all your autos and the liability associated with it, the law enforcement, and then the public officials is all at $5 million.
Is that usual and customary for townships our size?
I would say yes. Yes. The lowest liability limit that Otarma even offers is $3 million. We always encourage, if you have police and fire, try to get to 5. In today's day and age. I would say it's pretty average with where you're at. Yeah. Okay. And there's nothing in your claims history that would say, you're at risk, that you might want to think about higher limits. Of course you can. We always offer higher limits at the end of the proposal to go to 6, 7, and so on. We can go up to 15 million. We have some townships that choose to buy 15 million. It's the max we can offer. But you're kind of right in line with most your size, I would say. Next page is a really high-level summary of your property coverage. So back in 2024, Otarma hired an independent appraisal company to do replacement cost appraisals on all your buildings and contents and things. So we've been using those numbers. This year, we actually inflated those numbers by 4% just to kind of stay in line with construction costs and labor costs and those types of things. Last year, it was higher, though. It was 10% last year. So it's even those things have stabilized a bit, where the inflation has decreased a little bit in the property market. So I think that's all good. So you'll see your buildings and your contents. The one thing to point out is it's on a blanket basis. So, I can't remember exactly what this building here is insured for, but let's say it's $1 million. If it ends up costing $1.2 or $3 million to replace, goes up in flames, you have the blanket that can respond. So your total insured values, you'll see in bold there, is 13 million, just over $13 million. That's up from about 12.5 million. So that's where that 4% inflation came from.
You said if our insurance doesn't cover it, is it optional for us to lower our insurance upper limit and use this if necessary?
Maybe I misspoke if I said if insurance doesn't cover it. I think what I meant to say, so if this building's insured at $1 million, But some policies would limit you to $1 million if it's listed at $1 million. But because you have 13 million in total blanket coverage, that amount can respond to the loss. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Not sure what I did say. So that hopefully I'm clear on that. So there's two parts to your crime coverage. There's your kind of a modest limit of 50,000 for crime coverage for those that are not bonded, or it used to be that everybody was bonded, right? That handled money, all the public officials were bonded. Now there's faithful performance and duty coverage, which is up to 195,000, and that's based on your budget. So you have the fiscal officer and all the trustees, and then Lori is also on there. Fire chief, police chief, road superintendent, all covered up to that 195,000. It is for any honest errors and mistakes, as well as any fraudulent criminal activity, right? So,
Does that cover what they call findings for recovery?
it depends. Yes,
It-
it depends
it
on what
was a
type
little-
of finding. Yes.
I know when I took over, we found some issues and cleaned them up, and there was some argument back and forth as to whether there would be a finding for recovery, and our prosecutor, look, they are not at fault. They were doing things the way that it always been, and there was no intent, no fraud.
Right.
But had it been like $1,000 finding for recovery, would that be covered under that?
That's the intent of the coverage. Now,
Unless I did something purposefully, you know?
well, even that there is coverage there, but then the insurance company is going to go after the person that did the fraudulent act, whatever, right? As opposed to with a bond, this is why this insurance coverage is a little bit better. Is it really decreases the personal liability for you all, right? So if there is an honest, you transpose a figure, something like that, right? A bond would have gone back after that individual, even if it was an honest situation.
Okay.
Whereas this, it's designed to cover that, make the township whole, and kind of walk away. So it's a nice advantage of the coverage. And we worked with the OTA to make sure we did all that properly with, as far as legally, and made sure we took all the proper steps to make sure you met that obligation of bonding. So, your auto section. So the only real change, other than any auto changes you made throughout the year, we did that same company, HCA, did a valuation of all of your emergency vehicles as well, and put a replacement cost value on them. So that's where that total value went from about 5.5 million up to 6.1 million in total insured values. You'll see on your auto section there.
Perfect.
You have $2,500 deductible for both comprehensive and collision. That's the same as your property deductible as well. Cyber coverage is kind of a hot topic we all talk about and hear about in the news. So Tarma has had to negotiate limits for the entire pool, so that the most that you can any member can buy is the $1 million. And that's how actually we build it into everybody's policy, the $1 million coverage. So there's two parts to that too. You have your liability side. So if you're sued for, let's say mismanagement of personal information, somebody gets into your system and people's identity are stolen and that type of thing, you could have a suit against you. So that's the liability side. And then there's the first party side, which is another $1 million could have some cyber crime where somebody clicks on or somebody sends money because they receive a fraudulent email. They think they're dealing with somebody you do business with on a daily basis, but actually you're sending money to a criminal. So that's probably the most common thing we see on the first party side. So
There's a lot of it. I mean, there's been a lot of it locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just the cost of getting your system.
Yeah.
Is that covered by the first party breaches? Like we could potentially have equipment or a ransom.
Yep.
I know that's always.
That's one of the examples. Yes, ransom, repairing your systems. You could have to purchase new hardware. You could have to hire people to help you get your information back, doing research.
Or new servers.
New servers, yeah, so there's the hardware piece, and then there's the software piece.
Okay.
So all of that are first-party costs, so not necessarily a lawsuit against you, but just things that you have to pay for out of pocket to get your business up and running again. You could have some downtime, potentially.
City of Middletown was shut. I mean, their utility department was shut down for months.
Yeah. Yeah, the cities seem to be the big targets right now.
It's so scary.
But there's been a couple townships in Butler
Yes.
County
Yes.
been hit. The large ones. So, yeah.
Yeah. It makes opening email really tenuous
Right.
these days because things look legit. I mean, Lori and I are all, did you get this? Do you see this? I'm not opening this,
Right.
you know.
And that's the most important thing is to make sure you're double, triple checking.
Mhm.
We also have a very, very good resource for you, Aaron Willis. I don't know if Aaron's reached out to you guys before.
Recently.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. So he can help you put all, or at least make recommendations for all the controls you need and those types of things, multi-factor authentication or, things like that, right? Backup recoveries, disaster recoveries, backups, those types of things. Yeah, so then the last page, the page 5 gets into your total premium breakdown or contribution breakdown. So I mentioned that last year you were about just over 105,000, which is 0.5% or so higher this year. And you saw where some of the values went up, right? So it was really a very modest rate increase for the liability lines, and then the property just kind of drove it. You do have access to three reimbursements, grant reimbursements essentially. It's safety, education, training expenses that can be reimbursed for. One is the MORE grant, which can be used for any department. It's $1,000. One is for the fire department and another for the police department. $3,000 you can get reimbursed for. The rest of the booklet goes into a ton of detail that if you want to spend some time with me on the phone, we can dig in. But I know you have other business to kind of take care of. So lots of coverage extensions that really just add to your coverage. Your example would be, if you have a property loss, there's debris removal coverage in here that, you're covered over and above what the building costs. Could have some rental expense, those types of things, right? So long list of coverage extensions there. You see your list of all of your equipment, so that we have to make sure that's up to date every year. And that's where you'll see some of those increase in value on the autos. And then on the left side, I think I just put this overview here, so all your contact information for the service providers could be in there. Just the history of the program, your updated board of directors, our team, how to file a claim. You have a risk management team that's available to you either at your request or they'll reach out to you and try to set up a time to meet with you and help identify claims that they can hopefully look at.
Potential claims?
Potential claims, yeah.
Okay. I see the deductibles are all pretty low. Some of them are zero. Is that recommended? Do we have enough claims that we should stick with that? Or if we raise our deductible, do we save on our premium?
On the liability lines, there's not a lot of savings. And it is typical that you have a zero deductible on your auto liability.
Mhm.
A zero deductible on your general liability. But it is something to consider. If you want to, I can certainly run some numbers to see what it would be, to take your liability deductibles up. Your property and auto deductibles are all 2,500, which is
Right.
pretty, it's not
Not
low.
high, it's not low.
It's not high.
Any feel, Julie or Lori, about claims we have
I was just going to
in
say,
12-month period?
Okay. Did you bring it?
I do have it right here, yes.
that'd be great.
That's me, throw everything on the floor. You have your claims run here from all the way back to when you started. So that would be what we'd want to do, is kind of look through and see if it would make sense on the liability side. I'm not seeing a lot of liability claims. I'm seeing mostly auto. A lot of auto. Yeah. So, but yeah, we can have a follow-up discussion.
I just wonder if it saves a few $1,000s.
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
It's worth an ask, that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Any other thoughts or questions or? I can do is send you some deductible options you can work with Lori.
From the peanut gallery, or are we waiting to public?
Are all of our vehicles covered for comprehensive? Is that part of any of this?
Yeah, so it is a choice. If you ever wanted to say, we're going to do liability only, you could do that. They're all covered for comprehensive and collision.
Okay.
But that actually makes me think of, your emergency vehicles are, for the most part, are covered at replacement cost,
Mhm.
which means we need to at least get them to an adequate value. That way, if you have a total loss, we don't really worry too much about what it's listed for, because we're going to replace it with a brand new vehicle.
Mhm.
And if it costs more than the listed value, we're still paying more. But you might have some emergency vehicles that are maybe backup vehicles.
Right.
They're maybe, they're just not on the road a whole lot. You might have a couple of them that you're looking to sell soon, right? You don't want to necessarily pay replacement cost coverage on,
Right.
Because you're paying a hefty premium so that you can have the replacement cost coverage, but you can reduce it to what's called stated amount coverage, and then you can choose, maybe you have a pumper listed at, well, let's use a specific.
Let's use number one on page 104, a 2000 trailer.
Yep.
That has a 2,500 deductible on something that has a value of $4,800.
So that's it. I can see why you're asking that question. So the values with ACV. So if you see ACV beside it, that value really means nothing, because you're getting what it's worth at the time of loss, because it's actual cash value coverage. So that's more of a rating number. So that was the original cost when you purchased it.
Okay.
The next one is different.
Right.
So you got coverage up to $492,000 on this pumper that's a 1998.
Mhm.
Now, you guys could maintain that. It could be in really good shape, and you know that if something happened to that, if you had a total loss on that vehicle, you would need to replace it.
And that's what the RC means,
That's what
replacement cost?
Right.
Okay.
But that would be an example. If let's say that's a backup vehicle, or it's getting ready to be sold, you could reduce that number to like 50 grand.
Mhm.
And then you're not paying premium on 492, you're paying premium on 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's it. Or if you're looking to salvage any of these and you want to keep coverage for liability only, you can do that.
Mhm.
So you don't have to have full coverage on all of them.
Is that something on a departmental basis that Rob, Chris, and Paul could sort of evaluate, just to see if there's any give in that?
Mhm.
Cover that?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's only the fire and EMS vehicles that are replacement cost. Everything else is actual cash value, including the police vehicles.
You can make a note maybe for them to do that, and let's just see if there's any room there.
The pumper is probably the primary.
Got anything? I don't have any more
Are you
questions.
taking questions from the audience? Because
Sure.
Raymond has a question.
Ray?
Hi, I'm Raymond Wurzelbacher. We take care of, we have a farm and village garden club. We take care of all the flowers on 128 and 27. We sign the sheet, right? Are we covered?
Yes.
What about my vehicle and my trailer? I do all the hauling of the signs and all hauling of the trash away. Is my vehicle covered?
So you're a contractor? You're an
No volunteers.
We're all volunteers.
You're all volunteers. Okay. So you're under the township direction. So that's the first key, right? So you're a volunteer under the township direction. You're using your personal vehicle on township business.
Mhm.
So that would be a second. So in order for Otarma to respond, those two things would have to be in place. The way it would work, and it would be the same as like a volunteer firefighter using their own vehicle to go to the scene of an accident. You would turn if something happened to your vehicle while you're on township business, you would turn it into your own insurance first. And then if there's any out-of-pocket expense, like a deductible, the township could reimburse that, meaning we could, because there would be a claim that but the township can't pay before your personal insurance.
What about personal injury? If a person gets clipped off by a vehicle?
So like a person, meaning the volunteers.
Yes.
They'll buy you a casket.
So that's typically, so for a standard employee, there's workers' comp for that, right? So you are working at your own risk for your injuries, unless there's a situation, you do have what's called employer's liability coverage. So you're covered the same way as an employee would be. So if an employee were to bring a lawsuit against the township, they're injured in the line of duty or while doing township business. So the example would be, I don't know, let's say the supervisor says to the gentleman to use a ladder, climb up on the roof, but that person knows full well that ladder, there's something wrong with it. There's a rung missing or something like that, right? So that person's injured because of the direction of the employer. There could be a lawsuit there, but you'd have to physically bring a lawsuit against the employer in order to be, for coverage to apply. Just a slip and fall or an accident that, you're basically working at your own risk because you don't have workers' comp.
But no, that's because we got a meeting come up here March 6th, so to let all of them know that we are covered. So just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Here, I confirm it.
So then for township purposes, when you're working, would it be good to keep a journal that, we were working this date, so if something does happen during the time that you're hauling from here to Rumpke or something, that Lori or somebody knows that you're on the job, so to speak?
Well, we fill out a worksheet. So as soon as we start to come in, everybody signs off that,
Yeah. Okay.
I think the bigger thing would be if you know that on the weekend of March 30th, you guys are going to get together. It would be good in advance to just let Lori know or myself via email, hey, the garden club intends to start this weekend. Or here's our tentative schedule. We plan on working these weekends. That way it's all established up front. And whether you do or don't is fine because you're keeping a worksheet of who
we do that with the state too.
Right.
Tell the state that we're.
Correct. And I just think as a courtesy, it would be great for us to be aware as well. It doesn't hurt.
Anybody else? Questions?
Awesome.
Anybody?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your membership in Otarma, and we owe you some deductible options.
Yeah. Is that part of that risk management person you talked about, or is that what you guys do?
As far as what,
What you said, it was a risk management person that
Yeah,
can come in and identify things. Is that who does that, or is that you guys?
so there is a separate risk management
Okay,
person. It's a separate company that is contracted with Otarma.
okay. So you'll get back with us about the deductible.
Yep.
And we will, in the meantime, talk to our department heads and have them review.
Okay.
But specifically, I think the pumper truck is the one that comes to my mind that,
Yeah, and we could make any changes before March 1st.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you receive a suspicious email, just don't keep it forward. That's the key.
You said March 1st. We don't have any more meetings before March 1st. So can this be fixed? If anything's changed, can we change that without a
Even
meeting?
if they would do it retroactively, it's fine.
Okay,
Because I'm going to pay the bill pro rata by department.
okay.
If for some reason there's a credit that would come back to us, and that happens, I would take the refund and break it up pro rata. So I
So
pay it in the same manner.
I do have this form. We're not going to change. It doesn't sound as though there's talk of consideration about changing the amount of liability. So could we go ahead and sign off on that we've reviewed all of these things and we're going to,
And like I said, even if it's after the fact and there's an adjustment,
Yeah, no problem.
we could.
Okay.
okay. Now I just need that
And that's
president sign.
just the president.
Yes. And then, so that's the invoice keeping the liability.
Okay. And then I would pay this, and like I said, I would pay it I break it up by the department based on the.
Should we fill out this commitment to continue
That
membership?
is only if you need an extension.
Oh,
of payment.
that's cool.
Okay,
So if you know that you won't be able to make payment until mid-March or something, then we would renew.
No, I can make the payment by the 1st of March. That's
Okay.
not a problem.
Yeah, so you don't need to use that.
Okay. I will give that back to you. So I'm going to pay the premium. And like I said, if there's any adjustments, the refund will be prorated based on how I paid it.
Ready?
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tom and Bob.
Thanks for your question.
Bob, how are you?
No pack.
Come on now.
Oh, something is
This color.
Look much taller.
Yes, we
Be
always
safe driving back.
Thanks so much.
send out reminders.
For the weather.
Yeah, before the
Yes.
weather hits.
Are we getting a thunderstorm?
Big thunderstorm allegedly.
Yeah.
Started in Michigan. It's not just something in Michigan.
Everything crappy starts in Michigan.
Everything, all the bad stuff starts.
Go Bucks.
No, all right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Lori, you mentioned something, or when we were talking about cybersecurity, and I know we probably went over this last year, but is our firewall up to date with subscriptions and things like that? We're here.
Isn't that what Aaron?
Yes,
Working with Mark
the
Smith.
person that they referred to for cybersecurity, Aaron Willis, reached out last week. And so Otarma did a remote check of our,
Website and systems and.
yeah, I didn't even know that they were going to do it. And so they sent one thing that they said should be looked at. And I sent that on to our IT contractor, Mark Smith.
Our biggest thing is just, like Bob just said, don't be so quick to click on a link.
Oh, yeah.
If something doesn't look right, doesn't feel right.
Right.
It may look great, but a lot of times if you click into the sender's actual email, it a lot of times doesn't make any sense.
Looks
It
fishy.
should be a gov, it should
Right.
be a org. I get numerous payroll update requests by email. So-and-so wants me to change their banking, and it's never real. And I always alert the employees that someone has used their name. But I don't do anything via email.
Okay.
Gotta come in person and fill out paperwork and hand it to me.
Next on discussion items, nuisance policy and procedures. Are we going to pair that with number 4? Number 2 and 4?
Really, number 4, an executive session.
Okay.
Those are going to go hand in hand, but I can briefly talk with the public about number 4.
Okay.
I don't think number 2, is that me?
No.
Nope.
Well,
It's not.
I mean, it can be me.
it would be not, if at the end of this discussion, it is deemed to go a more proactive route than having the police department assist with that,
Absolutely.
be an option, but that's sort of what this discussion is about.
This packet is pretty big. The Ross Township nuisance policy and procedures is that policy of Ross Township that properties shall be maintained free from nuisance in conformance with the laws of the state of Ohio. The township and its officers will make reasonable efforts to obtain voluntary compliance from property owners prior to exercising its authority under the law. We have a definition of a nuisance. There's a lot to read through this. I don't, do you guys want to read through this? And
There's a,
go ahead.
there's a lot that we can do, and then there's a lot that we are precluded from doing. And we have to work with the county, and we have to
Well,
work with the prosecutor.
Trustee McGurran asked that the board discuss this to see if the township was interested in taking a more proactive approach as opposed to reactive. We don't have our own zoning department, so right now the township acts upon nuisance violations that are submitted to the township. Trustee McGurran is wondering if driving, or, if looking for nuisances, not waiting for them to be reported by a resident, it is an option.
Is it an option that we should do? Now, when we use the term proactive, we're going to be, let's say we're driving through area A and we see a junk car.
I think, we had one item that I think Lori brought to us involving garbage cans and trash in the corner of the building, I think last month. The first thing that I thought of is number one, I'm concerned about your role in identifying these properties and going out by yourself. That if you look at some of the, what I call real problems, I would say that some of those people may be unapproachable and you need a uniform with you at that point in time. But
I don't go on property, I just
you just
drive
identify.
by and
Then who delivers the notice?
notices have to be mailed by certified mail, so there's proof of the mailing.
Okay.
I, in addition, mail by regular mail as well. There's no proof that that's been received. However, most of us know certified mail is not usually a good piece of mail. So I can assume that the regular mail is received if nobody picks up the certified mail.
So there isn't any real physical serving of papers.
I sometimes can utilize the police department to knock on a door and deliver a notice. If some cases, if I believe the property, if no one is residing there and I don't have proof that a notice has been received, one of the steps is to post a notice on the door and take a picture that I've done so. I have been known to do that, but I am turning more of that over to the police department. So I try to not go on.
Mhm.
property.
I can tell you the county is not going to do it. We had some issue about homeless living in sheds, which is obviously there's a criminal and drug component there. And we've called Butler County zoning and they have said to us, yeah, we're not going to do that. Well, we're not going to go out there and look at that property or go on that yard because they obviously recognize that there's some danger signs there. So I think if there's an avenue for us to do that, we need to get the ordinances in place to try to deal with some of that is transient coming through.
Well,
Right now,
the trustees only have the authority to deal with buildings that appear to be unsafe structurally. Nuisances would be debris and excessive vegetation and abandoned and junk motor vehicles. So those are the only things that the trustees can act on. And if the township does have to abate any of those, then the charge for that gets assessed to the property owner. So, getting reimbursed is not always easy.
Well, would you put a lien on the property then? At
The
that point?
way that works is nuisances are a little different. You certify them timely. We used to, back in the day, we used to tell entities to just do it one time a year.
Mhm.
We found out that there were problems with that. So it has to be timely served. So we've done all the things statutorily to notify. They've been notified. We've got a company to come in and clean it up. We know what the cost is, and we notify them that they can pay it or we're going to pay it and put it on their tax bill. We immediately certify it to the auditor. The auditor has to put it on the very next possible collection. It's called, the lien is not perfected until it actually hits a tax bill.
Okay.
So it can sit in the auditor's office, but if the property changes hands between then and the time the auditor puts it on the bill, the person doesn't have to pay it. So there's some timing with it. So as soon as we get our ducks in a row and are done, we have to certify it immediately to the auditor. So let's say right now we miss the billing of the first half bill, they would have to put it on second half. And then there is a third billing for any delinquency that's later in the year. So there's 3 times a year the auditor can actually put it on. So that then and only then, once it hits a tax bill, is it considered a lien against the property. So other things can be a lien and can linger for title purposes. You can tell them, we're going to have sidewalk work done. That's a lien that you can file with the auditor and they know they're going to collect it and title examiners come in and go, oh, yep, that sidewalk's coming up next year. That's a lien. With nuisances, it's not, the lien is not perfected until it actually hits the tax bill. So it's very, very important that the auditor get it on right away and that we don't sit on them. We used to tell people, oh, just sit on them and certify them once a year. That was problematic.
So do you think we would have the cooperation of the auditors?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry.
What do we need to do to the extent that law provides us what level of authority? Because there are areas that need to be addressed. And we cannot count on people that are either overworked or not facing the problems. Because I can tell you that prior to January, that was one of the things that people continually talked about is the junkyards, the trash areas that need to be addressed. So, and I tell them that it's up to the county. Well, if the county doesn't have the time or the interest, what do we do?
that's kind of why I
Your
brought,
own zoning department.
well, in terms of the nuisances, that's why I brought it to Lori's attention. Does this board want to be proactive? And if we see something bad somewhere,
Absolutely.
say, take it to whatever step we can, or do we wait until somebody calls or emails and complains, a resident?
How often do you get? How many per year-ish?
it's like a lot of things in life. You go for a period of time that you don't have many, and then you get quite a few. I have 10 maybe. In the summer, there's a lot more because of grass. Grass, vegetation, that's very easy. Debris, I try to use the rule of thumb is it things that should be outside. Obviously, an upholstered piece of furniture is not supposed to be outside.
Refrigerator.
Or a refrigerator. Some things are easy. Some things are, are they supposed to be outside? I don't know. Is there stuff strewn around the yard? Yes, but is it items that are supposed to be outside? If they are, that's a tough call. Is there a lot of it? Yes. Is it supposed to be outside? Well, that's hard. Junk motor vehicles, there's 3 criteria that they have to meet, but also we have to have a contract with a particular salvage dealer. I used to be able to use Halps at the corner of Millville, Shandon. But the last time I reached out to them, they were no longer doing it. I haven't had to deal with a junk motor vehicle in that extent since they've told me they're not doing it anymore. When people call in and they have received a notice, the first thing that a lot of them say is, I don't understand why I got this notice. I can look around and see a lot of properties worse than mine. And they're like, I'm just going to go up and down the street and report everybody.
Okay.
And so when I can say to them, the reason that you received this is because someone reported it to the township. We are not driving around looking. That usually calms them down quite a bit. And then they usually know who reported them. It's usually a neighbor. A lot of times we're in the middle of a neighbor's dispute.
One of the pictures that are here is of a mobile home. Don't we have a resolution or a policy that says anything over X number of feet can't be parked for a certain period in the front or side yard?
That's a zoning. That is zoning.
Okay.
Is that rural zoning or is that zoning? I mean,
Well, we are under the Butler County Rural Zoning Resolution.
Okay.
For the parking of campers and boats and things like that, that is a zoning issue. Now, parking on the street, I don't know. That would be a police department, but if you're talking about parking on the property, that's zoning.
So the question still is, does this board want to be proactive or reactive to it?
Well, I think the first question is when you say board, do you mean whose responsibility? Is it any of the 3 of us as we're driving around the township to notice it, or exclusively Lori? And then I think you have to have a standard and you have to apply that consistently and fairly. And your definition of something could be very different than my definition.
Yep.
And if you talk to my family, I'm borderline OCD. So I would imagine my definition, and I think that's a slippery slope.
I agree. That's why I thought we should ask, because
more vehicles
it's objective.
parked in your front yard, whether it's in a driveway or just parked in your front yard. I find it interesting that 3 years or older is under a junk vehicle. That's interesting. Is that our definition? The 3 years, did that come from?
No, it's the Ohio Revised.
Okay, all right. Wow.
Looking at the pictures, I'm going to go to bet that 60% of these cars are not even licensed.
That doesn't.
If they're on private property, does that?
It doesn't have to be licensed, but then you come into the junk vehicle description, which I know there was some Supreme Court casework that came out on that. I would have to go back and look at it because we used to do it as a police function, but then we outsourced it to somebody else. But it's it's kind of a slippery slope there, but usually when we go there and tell them that, they could get a ticket for that, it's going to be a little bit more. And I don't think that's something that Lori should be doing on the face of it. The goal is to get compliance, to clean up the neighborhood. Because usually the worst houses that we have, I would venture to say they're probably the houses we get calls on to the police for other reasons. So I don't want to use the police to say, go cut your grass, but I can reach out to some other townships that may have some ordinances that are a little bit more in the proactive nature and see what they do and get that back to the board. So, but because you're really just talking about,
We could ticket for that?
or for some things, if we had an ordinance in place for it, because Butler County's not going to do it. We've called them on some problem areas that we've had, and they just go, yeah, we're not going to come out and do that. So that leaves us, some other ways that we can address those issues through criminal enforcement if they're violating the law. But I would like to have a position of, if you're letting drug dealers or drug users stay in your shed on your department and I can't do anything about that, we should be addressing that situation, because it's just allowing a criminal element to sit here in the community and wander around and commit other crimes. So we're really good at catching them when they do that, but we should have something in place for that, whatever that is. And I can reach out and see what the board does, but a lot of what I get is that is Butler County's, and then we call them, and Butler County's, they're too busy. They don't, and I just don't know that they want to do it, to be honest with you.
We have that problem here.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So I think that should be the focus a little bit. And if we can help facilitate, cleaning up some of our problem areas, I don't have a problem with that. But, the junk vehicles and things like that. But I think where you have places that people are living in, where there's no running water, where there's no electricity, and there's other things that should be handled by the county, they're not going to do it. So I don't know if certain things can fall under an ordinance or not. So I can do that research and get some ideas back for the board and also for Lori. So
Are those people being authorized by the people who own the property to?
well, yes, until they get in trouble, and then they don't want them there. So, but then you have the whole legality of, if you let somebody live there on your property, now it's an eviction thing, and we can suggest certain things, but it's not a whole lot, but we have some areas of concern. And I think if we had anything that had more teeth than relying on another agency to come out here and do it, I would be all for that. I don't want to tell people that they don't want zoning out here. That's fine. But I think we're talking about the worst of the worst. And I think there's some areas that, there's really good people living in certain areas. And when you have everything is falling apart and you're not watching who stays in your house, that's where we have issues. And, if I can't get a criminal charge, then we could clean up the property and use that as an alternative to go. You're not going to just stay here and be like this. But I can get that in report.
Let us know what other townships do.
Yes.
My original question was, would this board want to be more proactive when we're driving around and see things? I'm not driving around intentionally to look, but when we get a nuisance, let's say we get a nuisance on, whatever, Main Street, and you're driving down an adjacent street and you see something else that looks bad, that resembles what's the original call was on Main Street, do we say, well, these people are already kind of in trouble, and I see the same thing here, so we can't let that go, or we shouldn't? Is that something we want to?
I think that we don't do something, who will? And I think that we need to make some of the hard decisions that are in the best interest of the community. What you talk about, this could be, a perpetual thing going down. Here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. But, it comes down to the point where, Chief Gerhardt indicated some of the situations represent a real issue for them, whether it be safety or, a criminal element. I think we need to do something. And if we don't do it, who will? Because clearly Butler County isn't interested because it's not in their backyard or they don't have the time. So if there's an opportunity that we could get examples and maybe enhance the authority of this board, I think we should do that.
Another angle of that is if there are certain people who might be afraid to tell on their neighbors,
Right.
and then what? If it's
If we become too proactive, we got a building over here that's falling apart, that's a nuisance there. That's been going on for months.
which one?
Salt
Right
hanging
around the
down.
corner.
Oh, we're working on that. You're talking about our building around here? Yeah, that's being worked on.
Working on it for months.
Well, I know.
If you want to be proactive,
Yeah, we've been proactive on that. We were out with it yesterday. I was out with Paul and Jeff yesterday afternoon.
that's what I'm saying, they're pointing fingers.
You have spare time, you can help us. All right.
That's not in my wheelhouse.
I think something else to consider too is, if I'm understanding this process correctly, we serve everything, and if the individual does not abate it themselves, then we take the action to do that, therefore spend the money to do it. And I would assume it's kind of getting blood from a turnip on some things. Are we prepared to, it's not that I'm opposed to it, but are we prepared to absorb those costs? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think in the case of vehicles, that's a relatively inexpensive fix,
Okay.
so to speak. Property is, I guess, the value of the property tends to be more than the value of the abatement. And if it's assessed on their taxes, unless they move within that period that Julie was talking about, we'd be in the clear, I think. Now, there could be something that falls through, but I think is that what you're asking? Is that what you mean? Like, can we get stuck with the?
If it's always assessed regardless of the nuisance and regardless of the cost, the way to recoup it is via the lien.
Right.
There will be people who don't pay it. There will be those that go to foreclosure, and if it sells at a sheriff's sale, it might get recouped. If it forfeits, there's a pretty good chance it's going to get written off. So there is liability. So if we're extremely aggressive and doing a lot of them, we have to probably weigh the percentage of what we think we're going to actually collect. And is the ultimate goal the collection or the
behavior.
remediation of the issue? And if that's the case, are we now just providing a service?
That's what,
Yep.
that was going to be my next
It-
point.
it-
And if that's how people live, won't the property more than likely return to the same condition?
If our goal is to say change the behavior, or if this one's cleaned up, then maybe the people that live over here see kind of what happened because the township made this one get cleaned up, then maybe they'll act with a little more incentive to clean up, maybe. I don't know. Again, changing the behavior is the goal, not to fine people. It's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to have the areas cleaned up that need to be. That one out on this end, it was on Timberman.
Timberland.
That had a lot of vehicles on it. They weren't junk vehicles. I think that behavior was changed. I don't remember the address.
Well, that was actually going through the court system,
Right.
wasn't it?
Right, but they haven't tried to start doing what they did before. They haven't gone back to what they were doing before, as far as I know, because I drive out there once in a while, just a lot. So yeah, it had to go pretty far to change the behavior, but the behavior's been changed, and that's what I think the goal is. Do we look like we're picking and choosing if we see one and we say, well, we're going to call that a nuisance? To your point earlier, and we haven't got to this one yet, to call it a nuisance. Does it look like we're picking on somebody? And do we make ourselves open for problem by looking like we're picking on somebody?
But it doesn't, just sending them a notice that, hey, this is being watched and we're expecting to see some movement on this. And sometimes the person has called in and said, look, I'm going through a situation.
Right.
My husband's in hospice. I don't have a lot of help. I'm going to get to it. I just can't. Usually, as long as there's an understanding, we're like, okay, well, you have 2 months to make some sort of effort on it, you know?
Okay.
And hasn't there been occasions where people have called with either some kind of explanation or, and then latitude can be given. And then there are times when it's like, look, it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
Example,
Yep.
we had a house down on Central Avenue. It was horrible. It was all ran down. The fire department walked through it, cobwebs all over the place, papers, just total disaster. You couldn't even find a carpet. I mean, you couldn't even find a driveway because of all the ivy growing across it, up over the garage, in the gutters and through the windows. It was to behoove us. Nobody wanted to touch it. So 3 trustees and a bunch of volunteers went down there. I paid for the dumpster, empty dumpster, and we went down there, we cleaned it up.
Mm-hmm.
You would not believe on how many phone calls we got to come clean our property up. That was it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, do you ever, when you advertise, when somebody calls in, do you give them the name who made the complaint?
No, it's anonymous.
It can be anonymous, but if somebody gives their name and I receive a call, yes.
See me call if you use my name.
Well, you have
I mean, if you've
to say,
said
I
Oh, yeah.
prefer to remain
Sure.
anonymous.
Anonymous, they request to be anonymous.
Just, I gotta go, but just, my experience on that,
Mm-hmm.
trustees should, we used to ride around, Wilsey and I, and Jordy used to ride around, or somebody would call, we'd go check it out.
Mhm.
Or Bob Bass would call and check it out, take pictures. We usually knocked on the door and said, hey, we're Ross Township trustees, or Bob Beck would say, we don't want to write you a letter, but if you clean up your yard, then you won't be, in the public's eye. And usually it happens, they clean it up, same way with the junk vehicle. You got 2 weeks to get it out, we're just knocking on your door, save us some paperwork, and usually it's all done. And I'll give you a name, address, a record service that will haul all the junk cars away for nothing.
I don't know that we can do that.
After you advertise it?
It's written in here exactly who you have to use. It can't just be anybody.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Rick.
It has to be a contract with a motor vehicle salvage dealer or scrap metal processing facility.
So they have to have a salvage title or salvage dealer title, more likely.
Maybe we want to think about this a little more
I know I do.
individually. Okay.
Yeah, I know
All
I
right.
do.
You table
Because
that?
I know
Okay.
yeah.
There's still a remedy out there. Complaints can get made,
Mhm.
whether their name gets listed or anonymous. There is a remedy out there. Now, when I first came on, we did not accept anonymous,
Mhm.
and now we do. So there's a remedy for anyone who's really aggravated by something they drive by every day and like, just need to clean it up.
Okay. Let's give it some thought and table it. Leave it on old business or whatever that category is. Mixed use overlay implementation. We've had discussion on that, I think, in just kind of a general way. Has everybody had a chance to kind of brief over this a little bit? Is anybody in, I don't know, against this? Or anybody that doesn't want to explore and talk about it some more? Because I put out a post on local social media about how you would like to see Ross, I don't know, develop or not develop. And I'll read you what it was. If you live in Ross as it pertains to developmental change, please choose one of the three following that best describes your preference. This is not scientific, but it did have several thousand views, and I think it had 400 or 500 engagements. So it, again, that's not a double-blind scientific type thing, but it was, let's say, wildly popular. Number one, build it fast and grow, baby, grow. I think there was 1 out of 400 that said that was the way they wanted to go. Number 2 was keep Ross Ross, and I think that was the overwhelming favorite. And then number 3 was build it wisely, slowly, and purposely, and that was probably a close second. So between number 2 and number 3, that was kind of where everybody seemed to land. If you are a Ross resident / stakeholder and wish to respond, please respond thoughtfully and support your opinion respectfully. And I think darn near every one of them were. Which brings us to the mixed use. We don't have our own zoning. It was defeated pretty soundly, but this gives us influence over how the area may or may not be developed. Originally called the Downtown Venice redevelopment, I would entertain and look to expand it simply because there's areas that are set for or prime, let's say, for potential development that may change the character of Ross Township proper, the downtown-ish area, in a way that the overwhelming majority of people that had responded on this and have responded in the past don't wish to see. This report here, this was done, I think, back in 2015. A previous board member asked if we would be interested in expanding it down to the county line, and there was some interest in that. And I would be so bold to say extend it all the way up to Ross Millville, which is the street that goes off of 27 just past the high school. Not that it involves the high school, but the properties that are on the other side of the street, I guess that would be the south side of 128. Those are big farm areas that could be potentially developed and kind of change the character of the area. So that's, what's that, Dave? Oh, is it? Okay. Okay. Well, that's also the property next to Waldorf. Is Waldorf, do you know if Waldorf was in a flood zone? Okay. I'm not sure if it was either. But I don't know. I just thought we should talk about it. There's already been a pretty big design plan. I think I think Greg Young headed up with the zoning committee, and just to sort of read over this and see if we're all in favor of it, if any of us are opposed to it. If we are, then, talk about it. But what do you guys think?
During your last meeting, Member Crowe, that you had this, I am totally in favor of this for a multitude of reasons.
Okay.
I too would like to keep Ross, but we know that one day that'll occur.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have some form of a land use plan, and some developer wants to come in, or someone wants to come in and build a building, we have nothing that the court of law will recognize to say, well, that's just your opinion. No, we have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows us, when change occurs, to be able to say, no, we thought of this. This isn't shooting from the hip because we don't want this store or we don't want this building.
Right.
Here is a land use. And I totally agree with extending it out. At some point in time, we're probably going to have to look at 27 going north as well. You know, and again, it keeps, if anything resonated in the conversations I had at a recent conference, is that those townships that did not have a comprehensive land use plan ended up being beat up in court, and the developer won every time. My past experience has been where we have faced or had faced out-of-state developers that had a significantly larger pocketbook than we had. And that's when farmland, large acreage took place. Some of that got tied up for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
They had plenty of time and other developments, and they finally wore people out, and off they went. I think it also is beneficial to a potential landowner, so he knows what the possibilities are that his land could be used for.
We do have a land use plan. And it was updated at the same time. The committee that was the zoning commission that was formed to write the zoning resolution, during that process, updated the land use plan as well. So we do have a fairly.
Has it been formally adopted?
Yes, by Butler County. Actually, the adoption process needed to wait. We needed to determine if township controlled zoning had passed, then the adoption would have come from the township. But since it didn't pass, the adoption of the land use plan had to come from Butler County.
Okay.
So yes, it was adopted maybe 2 years ago.
It is an
But
official document.
The land use plan
Yes.
does not allow us to specify construction materials and signage and things like that.
No, that's
Mixed
more,
use
yeah.
overlay
Right.
can help.
Give you an example on a very elementary basis. The people who live this way on 128 down to Old Coleraine, Lehigh, they have invested in historical themes, restoration. There's a vacant lot there, maybe 2. So what prevents them at this point in time to have this beautiful home and this area that we call the downtown, to have an AutoZone store built right in the middle between these buildings? It doesn't make sense that, you know, these people should have some comfort to say it's going to stay. You know, it's no different than any of our neighbors. You know, I totally agree with pursuing this and expanding it to the extent. I think you had something at Kraus in 128 yourself, didn't you? That you had to look at?
That was under the land use. That was under the land use plan, and that stopped that. And again, it's not something that I think we're interested in stopping. Let's say stopping development or stopping small business, you know, from coming here. It's if it comes, here's what we'd like to see it look like.
Well, this is the time to be proactive.
Correct.
And not reactive. I do have a question though. Did I not read somewhere that someone, a resident in this district, it has to be the one to ask for it? That the township cannot?
I thought that's what it was, but when David Fair was here, he said no, that we could proceed with it.
Okay. And there were, last August, if I read, there were two respondents in that area. And people obviously have very strong feelings about this. I found it interesting that only 2 people responded.
And at least one of them said, I'm only responding because the letter said we need to respond. So
yes.
it
So
wasn't.
do you take the silence as, okay, we're okay with it, or that?
Other than doing an official survey, I mean, I can send this if anybody wants to see it. Again, it wasn't scientific. I don't even know that even everybody lived in Ross. There was probably some Morgan responders. But everybody I've ever talked to tells me the same thing. keep Ross. I hear it all the time. I've never heard it.
Ross.
Well, and I've heard people say, what does that mean? Define that. But I think we can reasonably say, we kind of know what that means. Yeah, slow.
But in trouble, all the farms have been bought up.
Well, I'll give you a good example. And I've been, not as long as you, but I've been out here 20 years. And spent my years not living here at the Venice Castle. So when UDF opened up and I came down the hill and those bright lights, it's like, what? You know, because the first night they lit it up, it's like, what in the world is that? We know those are coming. And now a steady customer of UDF, I like the convenience of it. But, you know, that went in and turned out to be a very nice building. You know, I'm not saying that in order to keep Ross, we're not going to go out and say, y'all come. But when they do want to develop, that we have some insight that we can keep it going. Right. And, you know, and what I just pointed out was, what is that? You know, and now I don't even pay any attention to it. You know, I see this was actually implemented in 2015, but nothing was done with it. That's a lot of money on a study to be put in a file cabinet. It still has merit, I believe.
I don't like to read, long soliloquies to people, but I'm going to read this because I'm sure there's people who are going to ask. For purposes of what I'm going to read, MUO stands for Mixed Use Overlay. Mixed Use Overlay supplements the standards of the underlying zoning districts through the use of an overlay district in certain areas where specific design plans have been adopted by the Butler County Commissioners. The MUO district and supplementary design plan, which is incorporated in the MUO regulations, provide design standards which are unique to a particular area. The standards are created specifically to address the unique existing and desired physical and architectural characteristics which are inherent to a particular area in order to A, mitigate the detrimental effects of intensity of use within the area upon the safety of residents and the use and enjoyment of their property. B, preserve and enhance the streetscape along a roadway in order to maintain the character and to promote safe pedestrian movement. C, promote the mixing of land use types as well as promote and improve the compatibility between them. D, improve the appearance, usefulness, and signage. E, help reduce traffic congestion and improve access. Those are the things that I think concern us. Again, we're not trying to tell people what color they can paint their house, what kind of bushes they can put out, or anything like that. It has to do with the overall feel of the township. So this is not meant to be restrictive for the residents that live here. It's meant to keep this area kind of the way that it is, to some degree, and have a little bit of control, a little bit of influence over how it's done.
Layman's terms would be, you're not looking for a 50-floor building.
Give me a second, Dave.
Standards.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you're talking about maybe 20 pieces of property from light to light now to be extended. Those are bigger lots.
Yeah.
Small half acre.
Yep.
And the houses that are here that everybody thinks we're going to try to preserve, we can't preserve because they could sell it. Somebody could actually tear it down and put something there.
Right.
It would be their prerogative to do so. A lot of people were thinking that this is to save all the nice old homes. And it can't because we can't buy them. So what's the people that own the home, be it the Oakland house or the houses down here really old, have a lot of history. Even the Butler, the Butterfield house, 200 years old. There's no guarantee that that'll stay there as it is.
No, but I think this, if design standards sort of control what can happen, then we don't have $2 stores sitting next to each other.
I know, we don't need more
You
of
know,
it.
they're not going to build, let's say, you know, to Don's point, an auto zone on that 5 acres, if you're talking about that house right there, even if it is sold. If it is, and David Fair made the point that I think there's one of these in Montgomery, that they wanted to put a CVS in, and they did, but the CVS was done within the design standards.
It looked like
And just,
yeah.
and just driving by it, you're like, well, that's not a CVS. Well, indeed it is, but it looks nice.
They started doing that back in the 30s and 20s. So it all stays the same with the same kind of brick. It
Yeah.
looks quaint. It looks
Yeah.
nice.
Right.
We don't have that, and it's, you know, and where it's going to look nice and quaint all the way through.
Mhm.
I understand we can't do that because it's too late, but we didn't have it in the beginning anyway. But Montgomery did,
Mhm.
you know. So we're trying to preserve what we have, but we can't really preserve it. But we want to have where the people are coming in, but have to have a different frontage or stuff like that.
Mhm.
We can't stop another dollar store coming in, but it has to look a certain way.
Right.
So it doesn't look like a dollar store. That's all we can basically do.
Right. And what Mr. Fair said to that point, which is, let's use CVS as an example. He said, it may not be cost effective for CVS to build that type of building where it's
It might be
X number of brick and it has a particular roof and it can only be this high and it has to have this and it has to have that. They may say, well, if it needs all that, we're not going to build it. Well, okay, don't. Somebody else will, you know, at some point. So I still think that allows us some control and influence over it.
You're in trouble right now. The last process was from Dave when he was here is to hire an architect that's into that to design what we would be looking for.
Well, we have that, Greg Young's got all of that big stack, that, you know, the
His
big box he carries around. He's got that because that was part of the zoning, if you remember. I think that was part of the zoning issue when they had that committee put together. This overlay district was part of that.
No, the zoning part is a very small couple of pages that deals with the Venice overlay district. You have a copy in your packet.
When they,
What would require is something similar to this. And Article 11 out of the rural zoning resolution details required contents of design plan. As part of this year's budget, I included a rough estimate. I received a rough estimate from Bayer Becker that it would be about $60,000 to come up with the required design plan.
the word, we don't have something, Greg Young doesn't.
We have in front of you section 6.02 that was written as part of the zoning resolution that went before the voters that was not passed. Article 6 is an overlay, Venice overlay district. So it does specify some things, but not to the details that would be required by Butler County to implement it.
I'm with you because Janice Adler had commented that the work was already done. And I was under the impression that something similar to this, or there were things in writing or plans in place with the work that she did with that group. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Are we, I guess where I wanted to start the conversation tonight, I'm not trying to dominate anything, I'm just bringing it up, but are two of the three of us in agreement that we want to spend more time on this to keep it going until we say, okay, now we have to put some money up, or do we not want to do it at all? I guess that's what I'm asking. 60,000 is a lot.
I am very interested in pursuing this to the extent you described.
Okay.
And, we get to the point of a decision. If it becomes overly costly, then we can,
Okay.
But I was very interested that you brought this out of me before I was even sitting up here.
Okay. Andrew?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. And hopefully that But if there's something that
Then-
was done with their work, we can be privy to
I
that.
know we've brought a few of them in, Janice and Greg, but maybe we should have that discussion again since there's been some turnover with them again to, now that we have, let's say we have at least 2 years to work on this.
So you want to reconvene
Further
the
discussion
people
about
that
that.
were on the zoning commission?
The March meeting, the March work session is already
Yeah.
the forum.
Yeah.
Unless you want to schedule a special meeting.
I don't think we need to do a special meeting. We just do it for April.
Okay.
Okay, so the April work session, you want whoever was on the zoning commission?
Whoever's, and for that matter, who's ever interested in it, there was, Tom's expressed interest in it. All these guys
We might
have.
have to move our night because Greg typically has a school board meeting.
Yeah.
So just be aware that in April,
They moved their March meeting up for us once already. I don't want to ask them to do that.
right, yeah. So the work session in April is scheduled for the 16th. So just keep in mind, we might have to work with Greg on a date that would work for him.
Okay. All right.
Plenty of time to.
It's okay. I'm good with it. So get my golf days in.
So we're in agreement to move forward until we have to
Yes.
start looking at money. Okay. All right. Okey doke. Number 4, is that something we're going to talk about in executive session?
Yes, it's going to go in conjunction with the Ohio Crime Prevention Association security survey that we had done that I went out to the board. I can briefly talk about this, but a lot of this is going to overlap.
Okay.
We're not going to talk about the security survey
Okay.
in public. That's a confidential document.
Right.
But just with the impound lot, this is a project that Lieutenant Rogers did. We've modeled a lot of things from the city of Trenton that has it. I'm not in the business of towing cars to make money, but it's a matter of convenience for the traffic that goes through here. It's not really our residents. It's a lot of the transient traffic because this is a major thoroughfare. So is 27. So we're getting DUSs, OBIs. I would not be inclined to tow cars that are involved in crashes where we have an environmental concern. But we have a whole half acre back there that is not being utilized. And this is a way to recoup some of the revenue that I don't know why we can't do this. We had this in Blue Ash. When I started there are other municipalities that have this. I think it's something doable. And you've seen the numbers on just based upon the number of tows that we have. And we're not even talking about court immobilizations for, say, an OBI or a wrongful entrustment or a DUS. Those are all going to the tow yards who are making the majority of that money. So I'm not trying to take from tow yards, but they get paid a tow fee for that. They would still get paid that by us, but we would have to have some things done to the property to secure it a little bit better. And that's going to kind of go over into the security survey. But I want to see if the board has some interest in this because nothing else is making us any money back there at all.
Do you have a report prepared that will show what the potential money coming in from that would cost?
Yeah, if you go to,
Offset the security that's required to make it happen.
yes. So I've given you what we did last year as far as tow and then plus an administrative fee. So we're really doing the administrative work for the tow companies, but we're not charging a fee for that like other municipalities do. So if they come here and we're doing all the work, there's a fee for the officers or Michaela's time to be able to release these vehicles. That's standard across the board. And then we're really only recouping having the car on our property versus the tow yard's property. someone's paying those fees for that. And again, we're not towing, you know, we're not towing for silly things. It's usually driving under suspension, no driver's license, you know, an OVI. You have tags that are expired, or you know, they're expired a year, something along those lines. And we give people some options, but there are some things that we have to immobilize, and then it's going to get released with court order from municipal court in Hamilton. So I don't know why we can't utilize our property for some of this revenue to help maybe offset the cost of taking care of this property.
Where, for people who are in the township, if one of their cars is towed, where's it towed to?
So we have two vendors that we use. One's for Effets,
Which is
and
what?
up north of Millville, up on 27, and then you have to go all the way Hamilton, Fairfield Township to Wayne's Towing. Those are our two companies that we use. So if you go over to because it's a rotational thing, so unless they ask for a certain tow company, we just rotate. Every call goes to a different one. So you could be up to 25 minutes driving over to Wayne's, depending on the time of day that it is.
So if somebody lives on Bella Vista, they got to drive to a half an hour to get their car.
Yes. Yes. And the whole thing is they have to come here anyway if we have a hold on it. So we're making them go to two different spots. So they have to come here because if we tow something that is of a immobilization offense, like a driving under suspension, well, we're not going to release that to someone who doesn't have a license. So they have to come here, show that they have a valid driver, show that they renewed whatever it was, and then we give them a release to then take to the tow company, which is kind of silly when, you know, if it's an accident, well, the insurance companies are going to handle all that. I don't want to deal with cars that are leaking fluids on our property. We're not going to tow those back here. So, but the easy ones, it makes no sense to send them somewhere else when we can handle it right here. And then we can just, it might be a little bit of work for Julie, but I create more work for Julie than she ever wished for. But just paying that tow bill to them for when they tow something it's kind of a no-brainer. But there's going to be a little bit of work that we have to do along with a security survey to do it. But if you look at the numbers for the potential for revenue, it would pay for itself in the first year.
About that, the 211, are those actual numbers
That's how many cars we towed.
in 2025? Okay.
And you got to remember, we have a $20,000 state grant that's coming out this year for our officers to work. That is no cost to taxpayers. So they're going to come across more people out here that are driving that shouldn't be driving. And so everybody understands and the public understands, these are people that are like, they don't have insurance on their car. So if they get involved in an accident out here and they hit you, you know, you're going to be responsible for that with your insurance company. So those are the ones that we typically come across. Somebody doesn't have a driver's license, somebody that's driving under suspension, somebody that's involved in a crime and we tow their car for some reason. Those are the ones that would be coming back here. You're still going to send the crashes to the tow companies just for environmental reasons. I don't want to have that here. But why are we sending people here? Then we're taking officers off the road to give them the documentation they need, which takes time, and then they go to the tow company. Now, again, it's going to take a little bit from the tow companies, but we have this area back there that is perfectly set up for it.
What responsibility do we have when you impound a vehicle and it sustains damage due to vandalism? Where are we then?
We could be on the hook for that. So the hope is going to be that when we talk about the security survey, some things that have to be done, that's going to, you know, alleviate some of it. But I can tell you we had it for probably 10 years in Blue Ash. And I think I had one time where someone broke in and they damaged their own car. But that was a long time ago. Cameras now can pick up movement. They can alert our officers if there's motion out there. And most people are recovering those cars within 2 to 3 days. Very rarely do we have something that goes beyond the 5-day threshold, which you can see under extended holds. I mean, we only had like 20 of those where it was held more than 5 days because of, you know, maybe the person didn't want to do it, but there's going to be times where, somebody doesn't come get their car and we already have gov deals set up for accounts to do salvage and we can sell that. I mean, you have Trenton made almost $18,000 in selling vehicles at auction.
And what is the time period on that? 30 days, 60 days, 90? How
Yeah,
long?
there's a whole, it's very clear in revised code. I've got some of that stuff in here, but before we went forward with, putting in credit card processing, those type of things, because I don't want to take cash. We could take cashier's checks. I want to see, based upon the security survey, these are going to kind of overlap if the board has interest in doing it. And again, we're not towing cars to generate money. These cars are getting towed for legal reasons. But we have property back here that we could make it easier on the people to get the car out, and we're covering those storage costs as opposed to the tow company doing it.
What are the hours of that? When people recover their cars, is it 24/7, 365?
Well, for us, it would be yes. So, I mean, all of our officers know how to do a release for a vehicle. Generally, we can set guidelines for that. But if we have it here, they can't go to the tow company and get it until they go under their hours. But we could have an officer here that if somebody wanted to get a car out after hours, I mean, if we set this up the right way, they have the ability to do that, which again, it's much more of a convenience for them to only go to one place, and then we could do it at different times, within reason. We're not going to not protect the streets or answer calls for something like this. We would try to push people to the general Monday through Friday hours, but we do have the ability to do it if we're not on some other type of call.
And accomplish it with existing staff rather than dedicating a person to do
Yes,
it.
they all know how to do.
Gotcha.
They all know how to do the releases.
Okay.
If we went with the point of sale system, and those are so easy to get these days, the person getting their car would be responsible for all fees.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, we would pass those fees on to them.
Yep.
And that's just because there's a lot of traffic that comes through here, and there's a lot of traffic that shouldn't be on our roads that causes major problems, crashes, everything else. So those are the numbers that you're getting. And again, we have officers that always use discretion on trying to help people out, but we have a young department, and they're going to be proactive. And with this grant that we have, and the grant with the OVI task force, those are going to come across people that shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car.
Anything else from the board?
I actually have something. I just wanted to mention, I had a nice conversation. Jim Welch called me, a resident I've not spoken to. He saw the article in the Cornerstone about when I posed the question at a former meeting about the IGA, and obviously they own that strip mall up there. And he gave me the backstory of what has transpired since the ownership changed, or the tenant that they just recently evicted, which he said took 6 months. So I won't go into all of that, but he did want to mention that they are actively advertising. They have an intention and a hope to find another tenant that will operate a grocery store. But he did say that there's probably about $500,000 worth of work that would need to be done in the existing facility with the fridges and the freezers. But he recognizes that it's vital to the community, and they welcome referrals, and they will be advertising. In fact, I think it will be in next month's Cornerstone. And he did say that they had had conversations in the past with Remke and Aldi, but he didn't really go into detail. Pretty much said Kroger's would be off the table, obviously, but it was a great conversation. He's obviously dedicated to the community. So I just wanted to update you guys on that.
Good, thank you. I'm glad he
Yeah.
reached out, because
Yeah,
a
he's nice.
lot of people
Super
have been
nice
asking
man.
that. Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Public participation, anybody Have anything? All right. We'll move for the adoption of motion number 26-020 to retire to executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 and to discuss details relative to the security arrangements for a public body or a public office in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G6. Time?
7:45.
Need a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Hatton?
Yes.
Trustee Bennett?
Yes.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. There will be no more motions or,
No, there is
Mike.
potentially one, but potentially.
okay. Something not on the agenda?
No, it's there's a,
Will stem from your conversation during executive session.
Okay.
next meeting is March 5th.
Forget what I just said. All right. Next meeting is March 5th, 2026 at 6 PM here. And for those of you who haven't gotten any information yet, we have put together on March 19th property tax forum that will be at Ross High School. We intend it to be at the PAC, which is a Performing Arts Center. If it gets more crowded than that, I'll speak with Dr. Rice probably in the first week of March to see if the gymnasium is an available option on that night. So that's it.